Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. This time we're tackling developmental education in Illinois, often called DevEd. It's been a hot topic, especially since those big reforms back in 2021.
Right, a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah, we've gotten a ton of questions from you listeners about what's actually been happening on the ground, what's working, what's not. So we're going to dig into all that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's an incredibly important topic because we're really talking about access to college for so many students.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for folks who maybe are familiar with the term DevEd, what are we even talking about here?
Yeah, so DevEd is really designed to be that bridge for students who maybe need a little extra support before jumping into those college level courses. Think of it as like a way to level the playing field, making sure that everyone has that solid foundation they need to really succeed.
So kind of getting everybody to speed.
Exactly.
Gotcha. So, we're talking about students who maybe didn't have the best high school experience, or maybe they've been out of the classroom for a while. DevEd is kind of helping them get where they need to be.
Exactly. And the numbers are actually pretty staggering in Illinois. Almost half of high school grads who enroll in community college end up needing at least one DevEd course.
Oh, really?
It's huge.
I would not have guessed that.
Yeah, it's a huge part of the higher education landscape here in Illinois.
Wow. So, okay, so let's talk about this 2021 reform.
Yeah.
What exactly changed? Was it all bad?
Well, the intentions were good.
Okay.
The goal was to create a faster pathway to college credit using more than just those placement tests to really figure out what courses students needed.
Okay.
And then offering more support along the way. So things like co-requisite courses where you take like a DevEd class alongside a college level one, those were supposed to help.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. So it sounds like there were some pretty big issues, though, with how this all played out.
Unfortunately, yeah. And, the biggest concern that we're seeing is that faculty on the ground, the ones who are actually teaching these students.
Right. The ones who are actually doing it.
Exactly. They weren't really listened to during this reform process.
So the people with the most experience and insight into DevEd weren't really involved in these major changes. How does that even happen?
Yeah, it's a great question. It seems that several outside special interest groups were really pushing for these reforms, and their voices ended up being the loudest in the room.
Wow. So the General Assembly basically let special interest groups write college curricula.
Essentially, yes. And this is, a pretty big concern for faculty, and rightfully so. I mean, these are the people who know their students best, and they weren't given a seat at the table when these really crucial decisions were being made.
That's really wild to me. So I'm guessing this lack of faculty input led to some of the specific problems that we're seeing now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of the biggest points of contention is this over-reliance on high school GPA as the main factor for placing students in DevEd. So your GPA alone determines whether or not you need extra help.
It's a big piece of it. Yeah. And,
I mean, I get that grades are important, but it seems like there's a lot more to the picture than that.
Exactly. GPA might show you how hard a student works, but it doesn't necessarily reflect their actual skill level.
Okay.
For example, you could have a student with a great GPA who aced all of their high school English classes.
Right.
But maybe they focused on literature analysis and barely wrote any essays.
Oh, wow.
And now they're thrown into a college-level composition course without those core writing skills they need.
And they're set up to fail, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's like assuming someone's a great swimmer just because they can float. You got to see them actually swim.
Exactly.
To know for sure. So what else are faculty kind of raising flags about? What are some of the other concerns?
Well, another major issue is this time crunch, the reform limited DevEd to just one semester.
Oh, which, faculties are arguing is just not enough time for many students to master the skills they need, particularly in subjects like writing and math.
One semester to catch up on years, potentially, of missed or incomplete learning.
Right.
That seems like a very tight turnaround.
It is, and it kind of goes against what we know about how people learn, rushing students through a condensed curriculum without the time and support to really grasp the material can do more harm than good.
So it sounds like we've got these well-intentioned goals kind of clashing with a reality where faculty feel unheard and students are potentially being left behind. So where do we go from here? What are some potential solutions to these problems?
Let's unpack those next. Faculty have some very specific ideas about how to make DevEd work better for everyone involved. One of the biggest things that faculty are really pushing for is more local control.
Okay.
They want colleges to have the flexibility to tailor these DevEd programs to the specific needs of their students instead of having this one-size-fits-all mandate from the state.
That makes sense because like a community college in Chicago is going to have a very different student population than a rural community college.
Precisely. Yeah.
So their needs are going to be different. Their challenge is going to be unique.
Exactly. And faculty are arguing that this cookie cutter approach just doesn't work in a state as diverse as Illinois.
Right.
They need the autonomy to be able to adjust the curriculum, placement policies, support services based on what they're seeing in their own classrooms and communities.
So more flexibility for colleges.
Okay, got it.
What else? What else is on the faculty wish list?
Well, remember that time crunch we talked about?
Yeah, 1 semester.
Faculty are advocating really strongly for allowing 2 semesters of Dev Ed instead of limiting it to just 1.
Okay.
They argue that, this additional time would make a huge difference for students who need to build up those foundational skills, especially in subjects like writing and math.
Yeah, I mean, 1 semester to learn college-level algebra from scratch. It sounds pretty daunting.
It is.
Even for someone who loves math.
Yeah.
So 2 semesters seems much more reasonable.
Exactly. And, this isn't just about like adding more time. It's about providing a more supportive learning environment where students can truly grasp the material,
Right.
develop those critical thinking skills they need to succeed.
It sounds like it would be a win-win for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Students get the support they need, and faculty can actually teach effectively instead of feeling like they're constantly rushing through the material.
Right. And there's another, crucial piece to this puzzle, and that's money.
Okay.
Many students struggle to afford the cost of these Dev Ed courses, which are often not covered by financial aid.
Oh, wow. Seriously, you have to pay extra for classes that are supposed to help you catch up.
It's a problem.
That seems so unfair, especially for like low-income students who are already facing so many barriers to college.
It is a huge equity issue, and faculty are proposing that these Dev Ed courses should be tuition-free
Interesting.
to remove that financial obstacle and make college more accessible for everyone.
I mean, I love that idea. It seems like a no-brainer, like a smart investment in the future of the state. If we want a more educated workforce, we need to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to get those skills,
Absolutely.
regardless of their background.
And it really aligns with the original goals of the reform, which was to create a more equitable and efficient pathway to college completion.
So we've got these key proposals from faculty, more local control for colleges, 2 semesters of Dev Ed, and making those courses tuition-free. All of them sound like really common sense solutions to me.
Right.
That could address a lot of the problems that we've been talking about. But how do we know these changes would actually work?
That's where data comes in.
Yeah.
Faculty are calling for more comprehensive data collection to track student outcomes and see how these reforms are playing out in the long term.
What kind of data are we talking about here?
We need to look beyond just course completion rates.
Okay.
And examine things like student performance in subsequent college-level courses, persistence rates, degree attainment, even long-term career outcomes.
So it's not just about getting students through Dev Ed quickly. It's about making sure that they're actually prepared for success in college and beyond.
Exactly.
Data can help us see that big picture.
Exactly. And that's why faculty are arguing that, data should be driving these decisions,
Makes sense?
not just political agendas or the interests of these outside groups.
Right. Base these important reforms on solid evidence, not just assumptions.
Right. And that's something that seems to have been missing from that 2021 reform process.
Yeah.
Faculty felt like their voices weren't heard and the unique needs of their students were overlooked.
Well, hopefully, by shining a light on these issues and highlighting these faculty-proposed solutions, we can move towards a more equitable and effective system of Dev Ed in Illinois.
Yeah.
It sounds like everyone involved wants students to succeed. It's just a matter of finding the best way to get there.
And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
What does true equity in higher education look like? How do we ensure that all students, regardless of their background or prior academic experience, have the opportunity to reach their full potential?
That's something I think we all need to be thinking about. It's a complex issue, but one that has a huge impact on the future of our state and our country.
Yeah.
It's striking to me that, we're talking about a system that's designed to help students succeed, but it sounds like in some cases it might actually be setting them up for failure.
Yeah, it's a really important point. The goal of Dev Ed should be to bridge that gap to college-level work,
Right.
not to create new barriers.
Right.
And that's why these concerns raised by faculty are so crucial to address.
We've talked about, the need for data and how that can help us understand the true impact of these reforms. But haven't we already seen some red flags in the initial findings?
Absolutely. Some early data from colleges across the state is already painting a concerning picture.
Okay.
For instance, the faculty at City Colleges of Chicago found that the current system, with its emphasis on speed and these high-stakes placement tests, is leading to more students failing quickly and without adequate support to get back on track.
So instead of helping students catch up, we're potentially pushing them further behind.
Yeah.
That seems to defeat the whole purpose of DevEd.
It does, and this isn't just an isolated issue. You know, in Illinois, we're seeing similar trends in other states that have implemented these drastic DevEd reforms.
Okay.
Florida, for example, essentially eliminated traditional DevEd, rebranded it, and reducing the resources available to students who need that additional support.
Wow.
The consequences, especially for students from disadvantaged backgrounds, have been significant.
It's like we're trying to fix a leaky faucet by turning off the water completely.
Right.
Sure, the leak might stop, but now no one has access to water at all.
That's a great analogy.
It just feels like reform, without careful consideration for its impact on the most vulnerable students, can actually worsen those existing inequalities.
Absolutely.
So what's the alternative? Is there a way to balance the need for innovation and efficiency with the need to provide students with the support they truly need?
Faculty here in Illinois believe there is.
Okay.
They're not against reform, they just want it to be done thoughtfully and collaboratively.
Okay.
That's why they've proposed these specific amendments to that 2021 legislation.
Right. We talked about giving colleges more control over those placement policies, allowing for the 2 semesters of DevEd, making those courses tuition-free. Are there any other proposals on the table?
Yes. Faculty are also advocating for a more holistic approach to assessing student readiness,
Okay.
using a combination of measures instead of relying solely on GPA.
Makes sense, because we talked about how GPA alone doesn't really tell the whole story about a student's skill level.
Exactly. They're suggesting things like allowing students to demonstrate their skills through writing samples or portfolio assessments, or even offering them the chance to test out of DevEd through early assessments.
So it sounds like they're trying to create a system that's more personalized and responsive to individual student needs, rather than just throwing everyone in the same bucket based on a single number.
That's the goal. And ultimately, it's about empowering students, giving them agency in their own educational journey.
I think that's really powerful. It sounds like these faculty-proposed solutions could really make a difference, both for students and for the future of higher education in Illinois.
I agree. It's about creating a system that's truly equitable and effective one that prepares all students for success in college and beyond.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored the goals and the challenges of the 2021 DevEd reforms in Illinois, heard the concerns of faculty on the ground, and examined some potential solutions that could create a more equitable and effective system.
It's clear that this is a complex issue with no easy answers.
Definitely.
But it's a conversation that we need to keep having. The future of higher education really depends on it.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I hope you're left with this thought. What does it truly mean to provide equitable access to higher education? And how can we ensure that DevEd serves as a bridge to success rather than a barrier? Thanks for joining us on this journey.